I spent over $1 million on coaches, advisors, and consultants, and here's what I learned. I think most business owners who don't succeed don't have the right mentors or coaches or advisors. And in this episode of the Bill Hauser Podcast, we're going to break down why I and my partner Andy have spent so much money and so much time on business coaches, advisors, and consultants to build our company, and why most people don't see the value, unfortunately, in investing in themselves to get the right answers. I'm talking about coaches who have been there, done that in areas in which you're looking to get results. I think back to the first time I ever spent money on a coach. And the first time I ever spent money on a coach was when I was suffering from anxiety disorder, and I was in college at the time, and I was basically told by my psychiatrist at that point in time that I was going to suffer with anxiety for the rest of my life. It was a predisposition thing. I was going to feel it my whole life, until one day after, multiple years of doing therapy, which was the first time I technically hired a coach, was hiring a therapist to help me overcome my problems with anxiety. I started thinking maybe there's a different way. Maybe I don't have to become my condition. So I went on Google. I found, I typed in like anxiety elimination programs or books or something like that in Google. And a Google ad popped up by someone by the name of Charles Linden, who invented something called the Linden method. Clicked the ad, was brought to a page where the Linden method was presented to me, pulled out my credit card, and I bought this online course on how to overcome my anxiety. And that course was the first time I spent money on education outside of school, which really wasn't a choice. I mean, I didn't really choose to go to school. I was coerced to go to school, I'd say. And I didn't really feel the impact of paying for school because it was all through debt and student loans. So I really felt this was the first time I went out on my own to seek an answer and purchased information from someone who had achieved a result that I wanted in life and was going to teach me how I could achieve the same result. And lo and behold, a couple years later, my anxiety was gone. I have not suffered from any anxiety. I've completely eliminated whatever crazy situation I was going through at that point in time. And it all sparked from that course. So logged in the back of my mind. Second time I ever paid money for information was, fast forward to, a couple of years later, I quit my job in insurance, and I was, an underwriter for Chubb Insurance. And I, at that time, was quit my job, and I was going to create a training program called Worry 180 on how I made a 180-degree shift in my life and overcame anxiety disorder. And I wrote this whole training program and book on the concept of Worry 180. Spent 8 months doing it, and during that 8-month process, I bought another information product course. And that course was from someone called Eben Pagan on how to create an information product course, right? And that information product course taught me how to create the program Worry 180, right? Fast forward, 8 months of me creating this program, I launch it, and it was an amazing program with training modules and everything. The problem is no one bought it. So then my next coach was, I need to find someone to help me promote. I need to find a mentor to help me sell and sell products and services so that if I ever go into business for myself again, I can control my own economy. So instead of learning it on my own, I went out and found a coach, and I ended up finding Brian Tracy online, who taught me all of the early things I knew about sales. I ended up finding many different online sales courses. And so then after that point in time, I had, learned how to sell. I implemented everything that I learned from selling. And I became the number one salesperson at yellowpages.com, number one in net business in the entire country. And I did that as I think I was 24 or so at the time. And I did that with zero sales experience. And it was just because I had the right information about how to sell. And everyone else I was competing against was just banking on the fact they had years and years and years of experience on me. But instead of banking on experience, which I couldn't have done because I never did sales before, I had the bank on my internet trainings I spent money on. There was one course I bought from Grant Cardone, actually, when I had started in sales for $5,000. I had literally a $6,000 limit on my Discover credit card, and I spent $5,000 of the $6,000 limit on this sales course. And that, combined with the lessons I learned from Brian Tracy, led to my success in sales. And had I not invested to find information around how to sell, I'm very confident I wouldn't have had that launching pad that I had. Then we fast forward to when I started my company, SMB Team, quit my job at Yellow Pages. I'm super freaked out about how I'm going to start a company. I end up going to my first in-person conference, and it was a Tony Robbins event. I think it was Unleash the Power Within. We went up to Chicago, myself and my single team member at the time, which was James Helm, who owns Top Dog Law. He was the first person to do sales for SMB Team. And we went to Chicago. We went to this Tony Robbins event. And that did some good. I mean, it showed us a little bit more about mindset, less about the business side. So then I did another event in Arizona. I did get great results from that event. Then I did another event in Arizona with Brendan Burchard, which was another multiple $1,000s, and went in person to this event and taught me more about business and sales and, also a lot of mindset stuff that motivated me and gave me a kind of a kick in the ass to scale, really scale my company. And then right after that, I'm starting to make a little bit more money. So I invest in a what was called, I think, a 10x 360 program at that point in time, or maybe it was called a business boot camp, and that was with it was a Grant Cardone training thing where I went out and that was super motivational. A lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Grant, but he really, really helped in my early stages in business in terms of showing me how to think big and set big goals and put, an emphasis behind sales and marketing. Really helped me get out of my own way. And I really think these three mentors, Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, and Grant, all combined to really creating a launching pad for me when I started that company, because I was comparing myself to business owners who were doing tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue, which motivated me to make more sales in my company and go bigger, right? Which then graduated to the point where I needed help scaling my company. This is, where I went into strategic coach, where I spent, multiple tens of thousands of dollars, probably over multiple $100,000 I've spent there over my lifetime now. And that helped me merge my personal goals with my business goals. And then that led to me investing in my next program, which was, I'm trying to remember what the next one was. Cameron Herold, who's the former COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, who I met on Clubhouse, which was an app that's kind of died. And I was having scaling problems, so I wired Cameron Herold $50,000 cash up front to become my one-on-one coach for multiple years. There was another couple $100,000 or over $100 to $150,000 for the time I worked with him. And then that graduated to me getting executive consulting, which now I work with an executive coach that I spend over 6 figures a year to be coached by, who's ran multi-$100 million companies. And now I'm in the process of forming a board of directors for my company so that I can have access to top-notch advisory talent to help me guide my company. So I've really been through the whole evolution of, buying an internet marketing course, or a course, that was marketed to me through the internet to help me overcome some personal problems in my life, all the way up to $50,000 personal one-on-one coaching, all the way up to over six-figure coaching from a CEO coach. Another coach in the interim was multiple $100,000 we spent on marketing coaching to help us run our virtual events. Andy had multiple $50,000 a year plus coaches that helped him learn marketing, who's really drives a lot of the marketing behind our company. So we add this all up, and it's well over seven figures. It's probably closer to $2 million that we've spent all in on coaches and advisors over the course of scaling our company. And I look at where we're at now, in terms of tracking towards a $120 million valuation as a company, and I think to myself how the chance, the likelihood of me having achieved what I achieved in the time that I have as a 34-year-old with no business experience, for whatever reason, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I don't really know. All I can speak from is my own experiences. That I cannot see a reality where these coaches, these mentors, these advisors that entered my life at the times they were needed, I can't imagine a reality where I am now, had I done it on my own, had I figured out all the answers through trial and error, the most costly learning method. And I hear so many business owners. We just got back from one of our quarterly events where hundreds and hundreds of our clients who run, businesses doing between $500,000 and $30 million in revenue, all service businesses. And I think first, all of these people who were at our event last week are a part of a coaching program. They're a part of our coaching program. But I hear every other business owner I talk to that's not succeeding has for some reason not learned the power of spending money to get answers and to get mentorship from people who have been there and done that in the areas in your business in which you want to conquer. And I just can't relate to it. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's not surprising to me that the majority of businesses fail, because the majority of business owners, they don't grow and they don't learn and they don't see the value in, investing in getting answers. And I'm convinced that all this kind of stems from, if you don't believe in the upside ROI, then you're not going to invest in yourself. Like, I always knew I was going to get a return from all of my investments because I knew that I was not going to fail through implementation. And what I mean by that is, sometimes when people read a book or people, maybe even hire a mentor or a coach, like, they don't implement at the rate that I try to hold myself to a standard to implement. I always try, whenever I enter a program, I always try to be the most implementation happy client in that program. I am not going to hire a coach or an advisor and hunt them out and seek them out and hire them and then not listen to what they say. And in my mind, I have never grown a coach that I didn't out implement, right? The only coaches I moved on from in my life are coaches that I felt I outgrew based on the proof of the results that I built, right? And I made a commitment to myself that I am never going to move on from a coach that I have not outgrown, right? And outgrow means I must be better than them in the area in which they are teaching me, right? And if that's not true, I stay with that coach until I get to a point where I feel I am out executing them in the area in which they teach me, right? That's when you've outgrown a coach. What you sometimes, you think you may have outgrown a coach because you got bored with what that coach or advisor was teaching you, but that's very different than you having implemented everything they taught you and you getting better results than that coach, right? It's very different than just, I'm bored, I need new information. So this is what I call coach hopping. You see these certain types of business owners who do actually adopt coaching, and they'll just hop from coach to coach to coach to coach to coach, because when you hop from different advisor to different advisor, no one's holding you accountable to execution. You can just go on to the next shiny object, not implement anything you learned from the prior coach, and just repeat the cycle, right? And it just becomes mental candy, right? And that pisses me off because, if you're going to go and spend all this time and all this money to go learn from someone, you are not just wasting your time and money, but you're sacrificing your ability to achieve your dream if you don't implement what you learn from that coach. So I look at it like this. All the greatest athletes in the world have coaches and have strength trainers and have nutrition coaches and have all these different things. And the greatest entrepreneurs and even investors of all time all have mentors and people that they learn from, right? Who am I to think I don't need a coach, right? Like, I was not born from a wealthy family. Like, I was born to a bankrupt family. I had to claw my way to where I'm at, right? And how much ego does someone have to believe I don't need a coach? I don't need an advisor. I don't need someone to teach me how to get better results faster without trial and error in my line of business. It's arrogance in my viewpoint. It's something, again, I can't relate to. And honestly, business owners who don't invest in coaching are people I don't hang out with. Because there's a certain humility that occurs when you hang out with business owners who know they don't have all the answers, right? And I think it's this dichotomy where, you think like Michael Jordan, for example. He was a trash-talking a-hole when he was on the basketball court. And the reason he was a trash-talking a-hole is because he had confidence that he could back up his words. And the reason he had confidence that he could back up his words is because he was taking thousands of free throws, practicing longer than anyone else on his team, using the coaches on his team, listening to the coaches on his team, putting himself through the ringer so that he stays in this state of learning while he's training with his advisors, his coaches, his mentors. But then when it comes game time, he has earned the right to be self-confident and to trash talk because of all the work he's put in behind the scenes, all the humility that went in behind the scenes that caused him to outwork all of his competitors because he knew he couldn't leave this up to his natural talents. He had to train those talents to be excellent, right? So that a lot of us, sometimes we are blessed with talents. I mean, especially if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, the only reason that you make it at all as an entrepreneur is you have some talent that the marketplace values. You go sell that talent to other people. But talent's a dime a dozen, right? Every single person in business, it's kind of like the difference between college and the NFL, right? Or college and professional sports. You could be amazing in college just on your natural talent. But time and time and time again, when you make it to the professional league, when you're in the professionals, talent, you will be exposed if you only depend on talent, right? 100%, because you have everybody you're competing against at the highest level are all the best players in college, plus discipline, hard work, and actually working their talents, right? So I think talent is actually a big risk. I mean, the highest IQ person in the world is a bouncer at a club because he has not found a way to organize his talents into a cohesive plan, right? So we not just need to have talent. We don't just need to have talent, but we have to be able to orchestrate our talents to a structured plan. We have to learn the habits, the skills of getting results from our talents, not just having our talents, right? And there's time and time again of sports athletes who had talent, went into the league, and didn't win championships, right? Again, the whole Jordan documentary, Last Dance, talks about this, where he was banking on his own talent. He was MVP, but they were not winning championships. So he had to change his talents and become more of a team player and pass the ball more. And that was the big light switch in the documentary, The Last Dance. This is just my battle cry, that if you're a serious business owner, You need to be serious about investing in coaching. You need to be serious about investing in mentorship. You need to be serious about investing in advisors. You need to be serious about investing in consulting. You need to be serious about parting ways with money to buy people's wisdom. And for me, I found that money is the fastest way to buy people's wisdom because the alternative is time, right? So let's say somebody who runs a super successful business that you want to learn from, who, by the way, is probably busy. Let's say it takes you 2 years to get that person's attention, right? And finally, when you get their attention, you meet with them once for 30 minutes and you get a lunch with them. Well, that took 2 years of follow-up to be able to get a lunch with someone for 30 minutes, and you did it for free. Woohoo, you saved some money. What if that same person had a $50,000 offering, right, where you could pay them $50,000 and get access to them every single week or get access to them every single month and get it immediately? So without having to wait 2 years, crossing your fingers and hope they respond to you, right? So it's just more efficient. And quite frankly, if you run a more successful company or bigger company, this is how boards work, right? A board of directors, you typically have either a mix of these two things or one or the other. You have a profit interest plan for the person who enters your board, right? Who can share in the upside growth of your company. Or you give them a payment of sorts for being on your board. Call it $100,000 a year, and they attend 4 board meetings a year, so you get their advisory services 4 times, right, over the course of a year. So this is how it works in the biggest companies with board of directors, and this is how it works when you're just getting started, right, which is really out of your own pocket, investing in learning from people who have been there, done that in the areas in which you want to improve. So this is what the 1% of business owners do. I know this because I spend time with people who are doing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue as CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs. And almost every single one of them that I have a relationship with, they all have advisors in multiple areas of their business because they're not ignorant enough to think they have all the answers themselves. So find a coach. Find an advisor. Find someone to fix the parts of your business that are on a recurring basis not working. If your marketing is not working, find someone to help you with that. If your finances aren't working, find someone to help you with that. If your sales process isn't working, find someone to help you with that, right? There's countless opportunities, but just beware, okay? Look into the credentials of the person that you're buying from, okay? Look into what they've created, look into their intellectual property. This is why I love that our company S&B team, we wrote the book on what we do, right? Everything we teach is from a zoomed out level in that book, right? So inspect their evidence, like look at what documented intellectual property they put out in the market, look at the documented results they've produced, and make an informed decision on who's going to help you on your next growth chapter. And I promise you, if you go into it with I'm going to out-implement this person mentality, I'm going to out-implement everyone else in this program or everyone else who's ever gotten consulted by this person. If you go into it with that chip on your shoulder and you really do out-implement everyone else and you don't question what your coach and advisor or consultant tells you, don't be surprised when you turn that initial investment into millions, even tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth for yourself. I'll see you in the next episode. Stay great.